we're going to be making some pottery. So we're going to be using air dry clay, and we're going to make some little dishes with some pressed flowers in the base. We're going to paint the dishes to kind of give them a whole look. And then we're also going to make a egg crate out of air dry clay as well. So like the little egg crates that hold your eggs, we're going to make a set that holds 6. So I originally saw this idea online and I thought that it was super cute, but I also thought that it was something that I could recreate. So I'll put the inspiration picture of kind of the vibe that we're going for on the screen, but I just thought that it was a really great like jewelry tray or like little key holder, something like that, to kind of just throw trinkets in when you get home. And I love pressing flowers, and so I thought that would be the perfect detail to add into the base. And then with the egg crate, I love that look of the ceramic egg crate and berry crates and things like that. So we're going to be recreating that for our kitchen as well. So if you're interested in seeing how to make these two things, then please follow along, subscribe so that you can see more videos like this, and we will get right into the step-by-step of how I made them. The clay that I'm going to be using today is called Das, D-A-S, and I found this clay on Amazon. I'll link it in the description for you guys if you're interested in using it. This is an air dry clay, so it's one that you don't have to bake. It'll just dry overnight, like in 24 hours if you leave it out. And I did find this one to be really easy to work with. It didn't dry out too quickly while I was making my ceramics. It was easy to kind of mold and combine when making dishes and things like that. So I would recommend it if you're looking for one and you don't have a clay in mind. I started off by making one of the small trays that I'm going to put the pressed flowers in. So to do this, I took about 1/4 of a block of the clay and started rolling it out so that it was nice and flat and smooth. And when rolling it out, I wanted to make sure that it was completely flat but not too thin, so that it was still structurally able to hold things when it dried. After it was all rolled out flat, you'll see me take a pair of scissors and cut a nice circle shape out for the base of the tray. When making this project, you can really use any tools that you have at home already. The only thing you really need to buy is the clay itself. Otherwise, you can kind of just use what you have. So you'll see me here, and I'm using scissors to cut out shapes. I'm using a rolling pin that I already had in my kitchen. And then the flowers are flowers that I pressed myself. So the only thing that was purchased for this DIY was the actual clay. The next thing that we're going to do in making our trays is start to make edges for the tray. So I took some little pieces of clay from the pack and started pressing them smooth just with my fingers and adding them to the edges of the tray to kind of build up a rim. And I know this isn't the super technical way to attach and make ceramics, but honestly it works and it's easy, and the tray is super durable now that it's dry, so just go for it. Trust the process and it's all going to turn out beautiful in the end. By the time I got to my second tray, I got a little bit more wise about how to make my ceramics, and I got a little cup of water and used it to smooth out any lumps or cracks in my tray. And this was super helpful. I also ended up using a sponge to help with this process, which I would highly recommend. And in making my 2 trays, I did want them to have an organic kind of natural look to them. So I didn't want them to be too perfect or smooth. I did want them to have some bumps to them and look handmade. You'll notice that when I'm making the edges on the tray, I'm really just kind of folding them in and moving them around until I get the look that I like. And that's just because I wanted that kind of shape and look to it. I wanted it to look natural and have that organic texture. You can make it any shape that you want, but once I found the edges in the way that I wanted them to, I just left it that way and let them dry. Moving on to our ceramic egg crate, I took an egg crate that I already had in my fridge and just cut it in half. And I went ahead and rolled out about a half of a block of clay from our pack. And I rolled this out to about a 1/4 inch thick to make sure that it was nice and strong for the next step in this process. Then what I did was I set the egg crate on top of our rolled out clay and cut off the edges to make a rectangle shape, leaving a little bit of excess room from the size of the egg crate. You'll then want to go ahead and place this rectangle shaped piece of clay on top of your egg crate and start to gently press in the parts that are going to be holding the eggs. Make sure that you don't press too hard here because you don't want to make any holes in your clay. Just start to kind of form that shape that you're going to be using. The next thing you'll do is you'll grab your sponge and put a little bit of water in it. You don't want it to be soaking wet, but just damp, and start to gently press in on those egg holder spots. And you're just going to keep going with this process, working your sponge into the egg crate openings and wetting it as you need to until you see that your clay has taken the shape of the egg crate and has enough depth to it that it would hold an egg securely. Alright, so we let our clay dry overnight for about 24 hours and now it is totally dry and ready to paint. So for this project I'm choosing to use 3 different colors of paint for the 3 different ceramics that we made. The first paint that we'll be using is Liquitex acrylic paint in black. We will also be using Behr paint samples in black evergreen and Dorian gray. And I will try to link all of these paints and the clay itself in the description box for you guys so it's super easy to find. I went ahead and gave all of our ceramic pieces a coat of paint and then let them dry for about 20 or 30 minutes and came back and gave them a second coat to make sure that the color was really opaque and that no white was showing through. When you have all 3 pieces painted and you've let them dry for a little while, go ahead and flip them over and paint the bottom sides as well, making sure to give both sides 2 coats of paint. I also went ahead and took some of that Dorian gray color on a brush once everything was dry and flicked a little bit of gray speckles onto my green egg carton. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start laying out our pressed flowers into our bases and figuring out the design that we want to do. So I have a bunch of pressed flowers that I've collected and pressed over like the last month or so. I'm going to look through these and see what colors and combinations I like. To attach our pressed flowers to our tray, we're going to be using Mod Podge. You can get this at any craft store or on Amazon. I'll link it for you guys in case you want to order it. So we are going to start by laying down a base of the Mod Podge glue, and it will dry clear, so don't worry if it looks crazy right now. It's all going to dry and be totally fine. So once you have your base laid out, then you'll start placing your flowers in the positions that you want them. When your flowers are all laid out in the tray, then you're going to take a light layer of your glue and put it over top the flowers just to create an adhesion between the glue on top and the glue on the tray. This will also help if you have any petals that aren't sitting how you want them to. You can place them with the glue in this moment. And really don't be shy with that glue. You can go ahead and put a thick layer over your pressed flowers because it's going to dry clear and it's just going to make them that much more secure. So you can see here there's a pretty thick white coating on the bottom, and I'm just letting that dry to create a layer over the flowers. The next step is to apply this faux gold foil on the edges of our tray. And to do this, you're just going to put some glue down, just a light layer, and then the best way I found to apply the foil is to tear little pieces off and pat them onto the glue either with your finger or your brush. So now that our trays are all nice and dry, the glue is totally dry on them and the flowers have hardened into position, as well as like the gold foil over here, it's totally dried on. We are going to gloss glaze them. So this is the final step that we're going to do. We'll put on the gloss glaze and let it set for 24 hours, so overnight. I'm going to do like the top bit, let that set, and then flip it over into the bottom bit. So this will be done in like 2 24-hour cycles. That's just my personal preference. This is like a totally optional thing. Obviously we won't be eating off of these. They're more like for jewelry or keys or something like that. But I just want them to be extra strong, and this will give them strength and make sure that everything is held in place the way that we want it. So this was on Amazon. It comes in like a pretty large supply, so you can use it for a lot of projects. I've already used it for a serving tray that had like a small crack in it, and it fixed it right up. So we're gonna use it for this. All you have to do is shake it up and then open it. Ooh, it's stuck. There we go. Open it, use an acrylic paintbrush, which I have right here, and we're gonna do a thin coat all over. And just make sure that you like really get these edges. If you're worried at all about your gold foil, mine feels pretty secure on there, but I just want to be extra cautious, so I'm going to give it a nice good coating. But make sure you get all those like little cracks around the edge. It's also just going to make it like a consistent glossy look. You can already tell the difference between this one and this one. Like this is already way more shiny, that kind of professional ceramics look, and this one is matte finish, which is also beautiful. Just, you know, it's a different look. So if you want the matte finish, then don't apply the glaze. If you want the glossy finish, then go ahead and follow along with what I'm doing. And try your best when you're going over the edges to not let it run and get any like drippy bits, because it will dry like that. It'll dry with a drip. Something else that I really like with this particular glaze, and this may very well be all glazes, I have not used a lot of at-home glazes, so I'm not entirely sure. But with this one, I like that it has this like iridescent kind of look to it when you first apply it. Kind of like a foggy iridescent, because it makes it super easy to tell where you already put it so that you don't just keep layering it on in the same spot or entirely miss a spot. And with the egg crate, I did go back in and add these like light colored speckles to give it some extra texture and dimension. And this color, the speckles, is this Dorian gray color that I used on this tray. So I just kind of repurposed what I already had and put it on a paintbrush and just like flicked it lightly over and then let that dry. I think it gives it a really cool effect and kind of almost gives it like an egg-like effect when it has those speckles. You know, when you see eggs that have like different colored dots on them? Kind of going for that vibe. All right, looks good. So we're gonna let these dry for like an hour or so, and then we'll come back, do a super light second coat if it looks like we need it. If it doesn't, then we can skip that. And then I'll let it set probably overnight and flip it over to the other side and then let it set again, and then they will be ready to use. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Well, that wraps up our video for today. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you try to make it as well. If you do, please let me know how it turned out. And if you try to make it a different way, if you give it a different look, then I would love to hear about it and see how you made yours. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video so that you can see more like this. And I'll see you guys next week.